Manchester United drawing at Southampton. Ten Hag under increasing pressure. His tactics and his signings analysed. Join us now for Manchester United, the D Unit's view. Welcome back to another episode. What can we say? Hopefully tomorrow is the start of better things moving forward. Hopefully when we travel down the south coast to Southampton, we get back to winning ways. But look, realistically, the stats say that potentially this could be a 1-1 draw. And what will that mean for Erik ten Hag moving forward? I think he's in desperate need of a win. Anything other than a win tomorrow really amps up the pressure on him moving forward. And I'm concerned for his future. And we'll be getting into that in some great detail today. Now, first off, what I want to do, we want to look at this, what will potentially be the starting lineup tomorrow and how we'll likely line up. Now, I'm just going to quickly pull out a quote from Ten Hag's press conference about the injury status of some players and Manuel Ugarte's potential inclusion in the team. And I'll let you guys decide what you think. Let me know in the comments what you think this means. So Rasmus Højlund and Luke Shaw, they are progressing very well, but are not ready for this game. Manuel Ugarte, I think we have all seen he played for Uruguay. He returned this afternoon. He was the only player who returned today. All the other players returned yesterday, so he is available for this game. Now, the way I read that is that Shaw and Højlund probably are still a few weeks away. I'd be surprised if they're not. Judging from that, there's no real time them other than the fact that they're progressing well. And when Luke Shaw's progressing well, we know that could mean another 10 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. As for Manuel Ugarte, that comment from Ten Hag makes you think he's not going to start and that he's going to start on the bench. Now, there's an argument to be made that Manuel Ugarte should be starting and potentially we should be giving Kobbie Mainoo a rest because obviously he's played a lot of games recently and he didn't have the most time off on the summer and, you know, he's still getting up to match fitness and he is only 18 years old. It might be 19 now. And we've got to look after him for the long term. These are all things that need to be factored in. And obviously the Casemiro debacle. Like, if there is a player that deserves to be dropped after the Liverpool game, it's Casemiro. However, I think that the weight that he has in the dressing room means that potentially the best course of action is actually to keep him in the team and hope that a game against Southampton, he can deliver in for 60, 70 minutes and then be replaced by Ugarte, which is what I'm expecting will happen. I'm not saying that that's what I believe should happen, but I believe that that's probably the most realistic outcome to try and keep all parties on board. And as Ten Hag said, easing Ugarte into the Premier League. If it was me, I'd just throw him straight in because I just think that what we saw in the first few weeks, especially against Liverpool, I don't think we can afford to be... if I was Ten Hag and knowing that I'm under this much pressure already and I need results, I would be playing him from the start and just hoping that he can start delivering straight off the bat because realistically he needs to. Now, I'm expecting there'll be no changes in defence. I know De Ligt had a challenging time away with the Netherlands squad and was hooked at half-time and Ronald Koeman pretty much threw him under the bus. And Van Dijk wasn't very supportive of him either. Probably suggested there's something between those two in the Dutch team, which is potentially why De Ligt didn't get off the bench in the Euros, pretty much. But that's neither here nor there. I expect the back five to stay the same with Luke Shaw and Tyrell Malacia both not being available. Dalot's unfortunately going to be continuing at left back, and that means Mazraoui will stay at the right, and I just don't think he'll change it, which is hopefully good and will give the defence a foundation to build on over the coming weeks. Hopefully they can actually all stay fit, and then the ones that are injured actually come back in and, you know, we can carry on. In midfield, what I would like to see, I don't think we'll see it, is I said in my last pod that I think it should be Ugarte, Casemiro, and Mainoo. And then I'd have probably Bruno Fernandes as a false nine. And then I'd have Garnacho on the left and Ahmad on the right. Just to reward the form and the fact that the other players just haven't been performing. And I don't think Xerxes quite up to scratch yet. I know he scored during the international break for Holland and great stuff. But I just don't think, judging from the times we've seen him in the Premier League, I don't think he's quite up to speed yet. And he probably needs a little bit more work. And I'd start him against Barnsley in midweek. That's what I would do. However, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that realistically, we're going to see Mainu and Casemiro in midfield. I actually think we could potentially see the same team as started against Liverpool. And then potentially the only change will be Ahmad in for Garnacho, because Garnacho was playing for Argentina away, even though he didn't start. And I just think that he potentially will come in and be on the bench and will reward Ahmad that way. And Rashford will get literally his last chance to put things right. We saw him training with Ruud van Nistelrooy during the international break. We can only hope that he takes on board what the great man is telling him about finishing, about that one touch, and then boom, putting it in the back of the net. Because I tell you what, if there's a player that needs a goal, it's Rashford, just to get him up and firing. And so does Bruno, really. I know Bruno found some form during the international break, but realistically, he also needs to find some form for United and get this show on the road. And that's going to be the hardest thing. When we're previewing this game, Southampton have a full squad to pick from. All their new signings are all available. Cornet, Archer, they're all available according to the manager from Southampton. And their statistics, they've had the most possession out of any team in the Premier League to start the season other than Man City. So they keep the ball really well. So it wouldn't surprise me if we only had about 40% possession tomorrow. But we need to make the most of our chances tomorrow. We can't be just missing these easy shots that we've had. Against Liverpool, our XG was 1.38 or something like that. We need to be taking our chances because we aren't good scoring many goals, and if we concede one, it really puts us straight up against it. Now, as I said, the reason why I predicted it might be 1-1 is that the recent games between Southampton and United have been thus. So the last time in the Premier League, it was 0-0 at home at Old Trafford, 1-0 away to United at Southampton, and that was in 23 and then 22. February 22 was a 1-1 home draw at Old Trafford, and then the previous fixture earlier in that season was 1-0 away to Southampton. So there's been a lot of 1-0s in the last 6 or 7 games. Ten Hag can't afford it to be 1-0 tomorrow. If it's hit 3 p.m. in the UK, 10 p.m. in Australia over here, and Erik ten Hag and Manchester United have 4 points or less in the table, he's going to be in a spot of bother. Which leads us on to the next point. Erik ten Hag's signings. Now, the Perth Man United Supporters Club, they're a bunch of great people, but some fans in there are a little delusional, saying, Ten Hag shouldn't be sacked. He's not open to the blame. And I've pointed out, well, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had better stats in almost every regard other than winning trophies for United. And he got given less time than Erik ten Hag. And he finished higher in the table than Ten Hag. Ten Hag's taken us to 8th spot in the league. And it's arguable that the only reason why he is still in a job is because the amount of width of my hair, when that poor Coventry bloke straight off by about that width in the semi-final of the FA Cup last year, otherwise he was gone. There's no way he survives in the summer without that FA Cup win. Absolutely no way that Ineos would have kept him. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. And what I personally think and what I see, I actually think that we're in the last 6 months of Erik ten Hag's reign. And I wouldn't be surprised by the November international break a change is made. And I'll get into that in a little bit in regards to our fixtures and how they look in the coming months ahead. But there's got to be a dramatic form reversal from what we've seen at the beginning of this season for Ten Hag to survive post the November international break. Or even to make it that far, to be fair. And Southampton is critical. And Barnsley. And then, the next few games after that, of our next 7 games, I think 4 or 5 are away from home. And our away record has to start improving starting tomorrow. And it needs to be wins, not draws and losses. We need to be starting to win these games. So, look, that's where I'm going with that. And that brings us on to the next point. And that's Ten Hag's signings. So, these people that I was arguing with today, or not arguing, but discussing vibrantly with, basically saying that, it's not Ten Hag's fault that, they spent all this money or whatever on players. And we'll get to the obvious one, Anthony. And I'm just going to use him as the the biggest waste of money you've ever seen in your life. But other than that, I know he didn't agree to how much we paid for those players, but he was the one that picked them. Now, someone said, oh, he's trying to play like Ajax. And I said to the Ajax thing, I was like, Ajax had a really good run in that Champions League that one season. And the other 2 seasons in the Champions League, they bombed out in the group stage. What happened when he came to United? First season in the Champions League, bombed out in the group stage. Now, that could be attributed down to one of his signings, Andre Onana. Now, some bloke tried to tell me in this group that Andre Onana was the best goalkeeper in Europe last year. And I was like, mate, no, he wasn't. Yes, his shot save percentage or whatever it was and goals saved or whatever was really good. But that's because United were conceding an obscene amount of chances every game last season. Like there was a stretch there where we were conceding like 20 plus shots a game at the goals. Like, of course your stats are going to be good if you're getting that many shots shot at you. It's quite natural. And then I was like going to this guy, I was like, did you actually watch the Champions League last year? Like the group stage. I was there. I went to the Galatasaray game at home and I saw one of the worst errors I've ever seen. Onana literally, he was at fault for the second goal and then he got Casemiro sent off. Like, mate, I actually don't think this guy's watched the games. I think he's just commenting saying that he's seen the save percentage and basically saying Onana's a good goalkeeper. Well, he obviously must not watch the games. Even in the FA Cup, the only reason City score is because Onana's positioning is horrible. He should be saving those goals. And there was at least 10 of them last season. So, realistically, Ten Hag didn't want De Gea because he couldn't kick the ball out. Now, and he made a few howlers as well. Let's be honest. De Gea's last season was not overly fabulous. But Onana's been no better. In fact, arguably you could say he's actually made more howlers than De Gea in his one season there. And the jury's definitely still out on him. And we've already seen errors this season. So, that goal for Salah, his positioning, what is he doing? So that's my first signing. I don't know where I rate Onana. At the moment, the jury's still out, but my jury is thinking that if he doesn't improve, they're probably going to be looking for another goalkeeper this summer. Let's be honest, because, it's just been, frankly, not quite good enough. Now, the players I'm not going to question at the moment because they've just been signed under the new Ineos leadership and the new sporting structure with Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox and that. So Lenny Oro, Joshua Xerxes, Matthias de Ligt, Mazarari, however you say his name, Emmanuel Ugarte, I'm not counting them because, well, for starters, we haven't seen 2 of them play in a competitive game and the other 3 have only played 3 games. So it's impossible to, make many assessments on that. They all look like good signings, like they could be good signings. Now, when I was talking to these people about Erik ten Hag's signings, now he's actually made 16. I didn't realise he'd actually made 16, but he has. So some of these ones, you're like, oh, really? That guy actually played for us? Because it feels like a lifetime ago now. Jack Buckland, goalkeeper, never actually played for United, but he'll sign on loan as cover. And the other one, who played 2 appearances, Martin Dubravka, also on loan, made a couple of appearances. Now, they were just there to do a job. So I'm not having to go at those signings. I just think they field squad role players, reserve goalkeepers. Who really cares? Now, the other loans that we've had. Now, Sabitzer, you would say, has been the best loan, and he was from Bayern Munich. He was the first year of Ten Hag's one. He scored a few goals for United. He looked good. Unfortunately, he got injured towards the end of the season. It probably cost him getting a permanent transfer, I'd say, to United, but he was actually not too bad. Of all the loan signings, I would say he's arguably the best. Then we've had Sofian Amrabat last season, arguably for 10 million loan, and the fee that they paid for that loan deal, and the fact we obviously didn't make him permanent in the summer suggests that signing was also not the best. He had probably 3 really good games, and they were all at the end of the season because the rest of the season he didn't do too much. Let's be honest. So, yeah, that's all you can say about that. Now, when we look at Wout Weghorst, he was the other loan signing. Now, he played 31 games for United and he scored twice. Now, he did a lot more for United than, everything else, but realistically, not flash. When you're only scoring 2 goals as a centre forward, not overly good. Now, let's have a look at the actual signing. So, we've got Christian Eriksen on a free. Arguably, you could say he had a really good first 6 months until Andy Carroll hurt his ankle, and you could then say that Christian Eriksen's been a very different player since then. So I'd say for 6 months, really good. Short-term signing. It cost nothing. You can't really say it's been negative. I'd call that a neutral signing. Then we've got Tyrell Malacia. Now, he could have been good. He had a half-decent first 6 months or whatever. Then he got injured, and we haven't seen him since. So, realistically, at the moment, until we see him back on the park, it's impossible to say that what he's going to be like, whether he's going to be a player that can help us out. So, at the moment, you'd have to say that's a bit of a flop. Then we've got Casemiro. Now, this was the definition of a desperation signing. We just lost the first 2 games of the season. Frankie de Jong, that he thought was going to come all summer, obviously was never coming because he didn't come and he still hasn't come. And we signed Casemiro, 30-year-old from Real Madrid. Obviously, there's a reason why they were getting rid of him. He had a great first season with United, and then Ten Hag has decided to play a different way from the second season onwards, and he's looked horrible. So, Ten Hag ticked it off. If you were going to bring him in, and you play him the way you did the first season, why would you sit there and start playing some weird football in the second season, which he is definitely and clearly not suitable for? So you'd have to say that this one, again, I would say is more neutral to negative in terms of like the overall impact, because the longer he seems to be playing, the worse he seems to be getting, and the worse the transfer itself seems to be appearing. The next bloke I want to talk about is Mason Mount. Now, Mason Mount could be really good. But unfortunately, he's also been injured. Like, almost permanently since he's got it. I don't know how many injuries he's actually had now. I think he's had about 6 injuries. 6 injuries. Can you believe that? I don't even know how many games he's played. He's probably only played about 20 games. Might be less than that. I think he started under 10. It'll be close to under 10, I'd reckon. So, at the moment, you've got to put that down as a fail. If he can't get out in the park, well, yeah, it's no good. No good. It's safe to say it's been a poor signing so far. Sorry, I did miss one loan in there. Sergio Reguilon. Now, I forgot about him because he only played a couple of times, and then Ten Hag obviously lost patience and thought, we can do without him, even though we probably should have kept him for the second half of last season. So that one was definitely a flop as well. Now the next one, Altair Bayindir, 5 mil from Fenerbahce is the reserve goalkeeper. Now I think he's played 1 game. I saw him play. I think it was against Portugal for Turkey in the Euros, and I thought that's probably why he's not getting picked in the cup games, and that's saying something. So realistically, why are we signing players if we can't trust them in the cup competitions? I think that's definitely someone that's going to get changed in the summer for sure. The goalkeeping situation, I think we're definitely heading that way. Johnny Evans, great signing, free transfer. I ticked that one off for what he's done at 35. Great servant. I mean, he filled in so many times last season when really we bought him as a 5th choice. Well, we didn't even buy him; we just signed him because he was just meant to be covering and helping guide some of the youth. Well, he's been a bonus. I didn't mind we gave him an extra year this year. Plus, Johnny Evans is a red, so yeah, crack on. Don't mind that one. Now, the last couple. Rasmus Højlund. The jury's still out. Now, he's now had 2 hamstring injuries in the space of, he got the first one, I think, in late January, early February maybe. Might have been later than that. And now he's got another one now, and he's still not back. So that's 2 hamstrings in the space of almost 6 months, and that's not good. at 21 years old. I think he might be 22 now. No, 21. Look, that's not ideal. That's not what you want, and that could be a problem moving forward. If he continues to get soft tissue injuries, they have a habit of reoccurring. He probably needs to talk to Ryan Giggs and start getting on the yoga, I'd suggest. Then we've got Lisandro Martinez. The only signing of all of these that you could say is a pass from Ten Hag that he's brought in. Now, and even this has got a caveat. When Martinez has been fit, we have looked like a significantly different team. Significantly different. And he looks like he's still finding his form after such long layoffs over the last year and a bit. So hopefully he comes good and stays good. And this is the one signing I go, yeah, I tick that off. He might be small for a centre-back, but my God, he's good on the football. And the other one, the last signing, and I've saved it for last because, my God, how anyone thought that Anthony is a good footballer is beyond my understanding. How you pay over £80 million for this bloke is just, it's the definition of a daylight robbery by Ajax. How they got so much money for this bloke is beyond me. The funniest thing is that at least he gives us the memes. Like, and who can imagine that serious face? I'm just pulling a serious face right now. Like when he comes on the sideline, you're like going, mate, the only thing serious about this is the fact that you're going to be in another meme tomorrow morning when you inevitably get caught out for the goal at Brighton. What is there to say about that other than the fact that he was meant to be Ten Hag's man, and Ten Hag has shown that his ability to recreate the Ajax team is not going to work in the Premier League. Now, there's a couple of reasons behind this. For starters, Ajax are a significantly better resourced and a much bigger team compared to the competition that they face week in, week out in the Eredivisie, in the Dutch league. Which is probably the reason why they got bombed out in the Champions League groups twice in 3 seasons when Ten Hag was managing them. He's then tried to recreate. Ironically, we've got half that Ajax team at United now, and there's probably a reason why we finished 8th last year. Because he's trying to recreate the same style of play that could work when you're versing significantly inferior teams, but when you're versing teams that are Premier League calibre and actually know how to play football and will expose your weaknesses and punish them. And Ten Hag's game style, if you had to call it anything, is like a basketball one. So we go up, we attack, we're going to have better players, which means that, we're going to outscore you eventually. And that's what the game plan literally is. Well, that's what it looks like. That's what I've watched over the last 18 months. Since the Carabao Cup win, it's like all of a sudden we've gone to playing this basketball type game that the only time we look dangerous is when we're just flooding forward, and then we've got all these gaps in the midfield and spaces in behind for every man and his dog to run into. And that's why we keep having these unbelievably baffling performances against what I would classify as crap teams. I mean, how do you go away to Crystal Palace last season and lose 4-0? How do you go to Brentford and lose 4-0? How do you go to Brighton and lose 4-0? How do you go to Liverpool and lose 7-0? How do you go to City and the list goes on? Honestly, it's not a surprise. And this is what I was saying today. Like when I was having this robust discussion with these people in this chat. How can you defend that? How can you defend that style of football? The blokes that we're having this discussion were even saying that, Ten Hag needs to stop being so stubborn. Well, the problem is that in the first season, he showed he could be pragmatic. He showed he could adapt to the players that he had available to him, to the teams he was playing against, and we had a lot better results. Then all of a sudden, it's like he's like, yes, I've won a trophy, now I can do what I want, or type of a thing. And since that moment, we've seen us try to press and do it horribly. I mean, last season is the biggest stickler. Yeah, yes, injuries were a problem, and you could use them as an excuse up to an extent. But when you change the fitness people and whatever, and it's still happening this season, there's probably a sign that something you're doing at training or whatever, or you're not doing the research into the players you're signing and they can't handle the demands or whatever it is, you need to change something and you need to be more pragmatic. And the weird thing is that until all last season and then the last 3 games before the FA Cup final, it's like all of a sudden someone in the dressing room or someone said, let's start actually playing like we can actually win the game. And we had that really good run. We only lost to Arsenal by a goal. We arguably could have got a result in that game. And then we beat Brighton away and we had another game in there where we won as well. And then obviously we won the FA Cup. And that's because we were playing pragmatic football, developed around the players we had available. This season, and people said, oh, you can see the improvements this season. The improvements this season have come with Mason Mount starting in the false 9-10 position, whatever you want to call it. Now, the problem with this is that Mason Mount is injured again, and in each one of those games, when Mason Mount has gone off, all of a sudden the game plan has gone out the window and we've looked horrible. So if we break down the Fulham game, when Mason Mount came off and Xerxes came on, yes, we scored, but we also conceded so many chances and dangerous breakaways in that time that it's lucky that we actually got a win in that game. If you go back and watch the last 15, 20 minutes, it's just frantic basketball football. And we just happened to turn out lucky that we got the 1-0 win. Against Brighton, again, Mason Mount starts. First half, United look really good. The pressing's good. We don't create the best chances in the world or whatever, but you can see the style of play, and like the only time Brighton went forward, they scored, which is a problem. Defending is definitely a problem, as we've talked about previously. Then Mason Mount doesn't play against Liverpool. And what happens? We get absolutely torn apart. 3-0. I mean, people say, oh, the XG wasn't that bad. And I can see the XG wasn't that bad. But I watched the game, and I'm telling you, that Liverpool team stopped in the second half. Because if they'd actually put the foot to the metal, they could have won that 5-0 quite easily at home, and then Ten Hag really would have been under some pressure. So look, is his football reliant on 1 or 2 players? Because if it is, we're going to be losing a lot more games, and we might even lose tomorrow if that continues to play a part. He has to get real. The sporting directors, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilson, need to sit him down and say, look, we need to play pragmatic football. Football is a results-based industry. If you do not get results, you don't get wins, and you all of a sudden find yourself out of a job, and you're back in the breadline with Frank Lampard. All right? And that's where he's going at the moment. So we can only hope that the football becomes more pragmatic. Is it suitable? Can he find a solution in the Premier League? He has to. We can't be a cup team. He can't keep banging on about trophies. And what he definitely needs to stop doing is referring to trophies and that in his press conferences, because my God, they're getting tiresome. And when someone rehashes over and over the same thing, just have a listen to what he said in his press conference, and I'll leave you with this. So we ignore the outside noise. It doesn't impact me. I know in the process where we are, what we have to do, where we are going. I've said before, we are still in a transition period. We have to integrate a lot of young players also in the team. We are still dealing with injuries. We have to bring the injuries back in the team. Before anyone thinks about excuses, no, we have to win every game. I know that. The team knows this, and it doesn't matter who is available. We will focus on every game, and in every game have the mindset we have to win. And then he goes on to say, players believe in our process. Of course, when we see the scores, no one is happy, but also players have a very good sense of the process, of the quality of the process. I agree with him. Also, when you analyse the games, all the games so far, we are in a good direction. But also, as normal, in a transition period and in the period where you have to build a team, we have to improve, we have to step up. Now, I'll leave you with this. We've watched for 2 full seasons, and 3 games into this one, we've watched Ten Hag make 16 signings, barring the 5 this summer, so that's 21 in total. And he's saying that we're in a transition period. How many signings do you need to not be in a transition period? That is my question to you as the viewers. Let me know in the comments, how many signings do you actually think you need to turn this team around? And do you have faith in Ten Hag still? Now, I'll be back there. I'll be watching the game tomorrow at 12:30, 7:30 over here in Australia. And I'll be cheering the boys on, but I just really want to see Ten Hag start playing some pragmatic, results-based football and using the players he has at his disposal to the best ability and setting them up in a formation for success. Not in a formation where they end up just playing bad football and losing games. Can't afford to do it anymore. Tomorrow has to be a win. I've got a bad feeling, but I hope that's proved wrong. Hopefully we come out and we get a 3-0 win tomorrow. Join me for the review and the lead up to Barnsley. On Monday I'll do a review. And let's hope that United kick off the weekend with a win. Sorry to be a dampener. I just wanted to throw that out there. Ten Hag, what do you guys think? Should he still be in a job? Or should they make the call before the next international break? Let us know and make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. D'ing it out.